Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining War Room Wednesday this morning. It's nice to have everybody on. Today, we're going to talk about adapting your CRM software to your business. And this is actually a super important thing. I run into a lot of questions, comments, thoughts, ideas from small business owners all over the place. What is the role of the CRM? What will it do? That kind of thing. And I want to show you just some simple steps today that will help you decide and then help you adapt the software so it expands your voice, it expands your reach, and actually fills in the gaps. So, how I look at this is a simple metaphor. So, if you are hiking, if you've ever been to the Grand Canyon or any kind of mountain range at all, really, and you're standing on top of the mountain and you think, oh, going from peak to peak to peak, that would be really, really cool to do. But in order to get there, you got to go down, then hike all the way back up, and then, yay, we're at peak number 2, and then down, whoop, up, back up, and then down and back up, right? Pretty soon your overall mileage is really, really high. It takes a lot of work to get from peak to peak to peak. So, really good CRM software is like building a bridge from peak to peak to peak. So you're filling in the gaps. You're still the one that's got to do a lot of the hiking, right? When it comes to being the person that actually makes it to the other peak, you've got to be the one that does that. But adapting the software and all the automations to fill those gaps can make it so you can get there way quicker, a lot more energy, and when you get there, and also it can take a lot of people with you. So that's the really cool thing about the day and age we live in right now is technology and AI and all those things are making it so possible for business owners to really scale and expand their reach and do things that, frankly, we've never been able to do before. But the gap today that I want to talk about, speaking of mountain range to mountain range, is adapting the software and customizing software so it fits you. And this is where TruePartner AI is really, really amazing. It can do a lot of adapting, and it can do it pretty simply too. So you don't have to be a big tech head to figure out TruePartner AI and how to make it work for you, okay? So I'm going to give you a couple of steps, and I'm going to show you a couple of examples here. Let me share the screen. Please work. All this stuff, you never know if it's going to work, right? And as soon as you're recording, it never does. So here we go. All right, great. So here's our screen here. You should see my pad. This is the very first thing I recommend every company do, every business owner do. And you can do this with any automation, or you can do this with your whole process. But this is really, really key. Step one is to just kind of jump away from the software, because the software itself, when you get into the weeds, can be a big distraction. And I know that sounds crazy, but you don't want it to be a big, let's turn it, let's see, let's go this way. There we go. You don't want it to be a big distraction, and you want it to fit what you're wanting to do. So it's really easy to jump in and start going through all the bells and whistles, and like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Oh, this is awesome. It's like getting a brand new car and just start flipping through all of the cool stuff that's in there, and like, oh, I want to do that, and we'll use it later, and blah, blah, blah. And that's all fine. I mean, of course, you want to check it out, see what's under the hood, right? But when it comes down to actually utilizing it, what I recommend is step away from the screen, get to a whiteboard, get to a yellow pad, despite all of our jokes about the yellow pads, and get with your team or yourself and just start writing down your sales process or whatever process that you currently do. So let me give you an example. Let's say that your process is for when a customer calls. All right. So if your customer is calling in, what do you want them to do? Right. So again, we're not in the software yet. We are just mapping out what we want and the sales process to do. So right now I'm just doing a simple customer calls. I'm not even doing customer text. Okay. So you would just simply map it out. This goes really, really fast. So for example, you would say, I want them in. Obviously, the call needs to be answered. And we'll just assume that it does get answered. And what happens when it's answered? Now you want that person entered into the software, right? Then you want them screened and then moved to next step. All right, so that's really, really rudimentary, but it's totally cool because it's like, okay, this is what we want. Now, then what I will often do is I'll often then create a second branch. And what happens if it's not answered? So then what goes down that, okay? Or what goes down the line, logically speaking. So this really, really helps if you have a receptionist or not, doesn't matter. Anytime a customer calls, what's going to happen in your company, right? What are the steps that you want taking place? I mean, you could actually even say part of the screening, you can write out your script if you want, and then who are they referred by, if that's part of your script. And if they're referred by somebody, then you want a thank you sent to the referrer, and what does that look like, right? And then, so once you've got all of these things put into place, now you can start looking at, okay, well, where are the gaps? And then where can I plug the software into those gaps? And that's really, really where the magic comes, because I've seen it happen so often where people will take the software and then will just start building stuff out. And then, and by the way, I've been guilty of this a million times because you want to test things and all that stuff. And I get that. But then you start going down rabbit holes and it takes you down another rabbit hole, and pretty soon you're like, oh, shoot, I actually I'd rather have this happen, or I'd rather have that happen to the customer when they call or whatever. So then you kind of got to go back to square one, but that's okay. But so if you just map it out on a pad, whiteboard is really, really great, especially if you have a team. Then what that does is that starts pulling some of the random out of your business. And once you've got that systemized, even no matter what the system is, once you've got that systemized, now we can start plugging the software in and making some of that automated. Okay. So let me give you an example. If you're using the app, well, let me stop and share here. If you're using the app, then, and I don't know if you can see that, and somebody's calling in, then that step one of getting them into the CRM is already covered for you because their phone number is captured by the CRM. So, but then the next step would be, okay, we got to make sure we're asking for name and email address if that's what you're wanting, and then whatever else do you ask. We want to know who they're referred by. That's super important too. So if that's the case, then you want to make sure that you just customize a few things in the CRM to capture those things. All right, so now let me show you a couple of examples. Okay, so when someone comes into the CRM, or a customer comes in through the door, right? And that's a better way to say it, by the way, because you want to make sure that they're coming to the place where you want them to come. If somebody's coming into your sales process, then you want them captured, right? You want them in your system. And you can organize people automatically, which is really, really great, depending on where they're coming from. So if it's a digital lead, or if it's a phone call or a text, oftentimes referrals will sometimes come in on a napkin, whatever the case may be. You can categorize them very, very easily. So let me just give you an example, though, of running through an automation that will help you. Okay, actually, let me do this first. Let me jump back over to this tab here. And this is a sample deal pipeline, okay? So we'll throw this person back here. Okay, so this deal pipeline simply just maps out the sales process for a mortgage loan officer, right? So when a referral comes in, they're in the status of they've raised their hand and they want to chat, right? So that's just what we call, you call it whatever you want, but they want to have that conversation. And that is the goal of your lead generation process, right? The lead generation process is to get people to raise their hands. The sales process takes over when you can get them to agree to have a conversation. Okay. So the sales process, it bridges the gap between lead generation and fulfillment, and is arguably one of the most important processes, right? So anyway, so this just mimics a standard sales process of a mortgage loan officer. So somebody wants a conversation, and then once that conversation happens, they're screened, and the mortgage loan officer can decide whether it's going to be able to move forward or not. And then, what's the next step logically? Well, the next step is to get that application. Now, sometimes these might be able to cross over. Sometimes you can get an application first, but by and large, oftentimes the order takes place this way. And once that application comes in, then that person is now pre-approved, right? And then hopefully they've moved to an active loan once they're pre-approved, they're under contract, right? Pretty simple. There could be steps in between, or maybe that's too many steps or whatever. But again, that's just an idea of how this works, okay? So when you take a look at this now, going back to our workflow, our notepad, you would say, okay, Seymour Skinner here wants to chat, all right? He wants to have that conversation. And generally speaking, this pipeline fills up really quick. And because for whatever reason, not everybody that says they want to have a conversation, they don't always. So they don't always fulfill. But as in fact, let's throw Bart over here just so you can see. But these two are now wanting to have a chat. Now, as a salesperson, I'm looking at this thinking, okay, how come I haven't had this conversation yet, right? So, but let's just say, for example, Bart, we get on the phone and we have that conversation, and we do the pre-screening, the pre-qualification, and it looks like Bart's qualified. So we just move him over there. Okay. Simple enough. So now he's in this different stage of the pipeline. So the question would be, when that happens, when I've talked to somebody and they've been screened, where do I actually, or what would happen at that point? Well, usually you send out the loan application link, right? So this is a very simple example, but this is the key to all of this, is keeping things really, really simple and just bridging those gaps. So if I know that every single time that I have a conversation and screen somebody, and I want to send them a loan application and maybe some other information, then what I could do now is I could actually automate that process. And I'm going to show you how we would do that just with this simple automation. Okay. So I'm just going to build it from scratch, and we won't fill it all the way out here, but I'll just show you how this works. So pipeline trigger or the pipeline stage change is the trigger. So when something changes, then we want to make something happen. So this is what's going to spin this automation into work. Okay. So what I'm telling it right now as if the pipeline stage changes, and actually we can even change that name to screened, right? Yeah. Pipeline stage 2 screened, and it's in the deal pipeline. Then what do we want to do? It's when it goes to screened. Does that make sense? So when it changes and it's in this deal pipeline and somebody gets moved to screened, then what happens? All right. So that's our trigger. And then we would say we want to send them an email, right? And then in the email, you can do all those cool things like call them by name, and here is the loan app link. All right. Then you fill it out. A lot of times there's a lot of other things that you can put in there, the do's and don'ts, all sorts of great stuff, right? Can even create a template, drop that template in there. See, there's some already in there. And off you go. Now I'll just hit cancel on that because I got to fill out a bunch of other things on it. But that would be just a very simple automation. And in fact, you could even do this too, by the way, is you could send them a quick text that because this is very common, right? So again, I'm going back and I'm thinking, what do I do, or what would I want to have done with this particular individual if I didn't have software? Well, I would want to call them on the phone, and I would want to screen them. And then what do I usually say? I'm going to send you a loan application link. I want you to fill it out, and here's some instructions on how to do it. So I would put maybe in my email, right? Because how many times have you typed that email in your life? Here's the loan application link, and here is the instructions on how to fill it out, plus some do's and don'ts, other advice that you might have. And then this, of course, these days people say, will you text me the loan app link? And now you can say, yeah, absolutely. So, and how many times have you said that? Yeah, let me text you that link here. Give me just a second. And then you send it over, right? So, oops. Link we discussed. And what else do you usually say? You say things like, if you can fill it out by 4 p.m., we can get the pre-qualification going today, or whatever you usually say. And then of course the link, I'll just put that there. Okay. Then you can, you throw that email in there too. See if it'll let me do it. Yeah, let's just do it. Loan app link. Just for fun, I'll just put it in here. Here's, whoops. That blasted semicolon, it gets me every time. Reminds me of 8th grade. Loan app link. Okay. Save and done. All right. So now if I hit save, and of course we want to make sure that we publish it, otherwise it won't be doing anything. Just a little trick for you. Then this is ready to go. So now, anytime I move somebody to the screened pipeline stage, that person all of a sudden will get a text and will get an email with everything that I told them that I would send them. Okay, so that's how you bridge the gap. And this is where you can easily customize a few things to make it so, oh man, it's so easy when that happens, or it's so easy, anything that's predictable. So you as an individual can cover the unpredictability things, and you can help things become more predictable by having rock solid systems like this, right? So if you have that automation that actually, for example, sends the text and the email, then you know that you're covered on both bases. And you can also go back and say, hey, this person has had the loan application link sent. So then if you go back to this and you say, hey, look at all these people that have been screened. I know I've sent them the loan application link. I wonder why I don't have the applications in, right? So this is where the follow-up takes place. So I'm going to give you a couple of different examples of how you can kind of go level 1, level 2 on this. But level 1 would be something like this. Now check this out. We're going to go to our conversations here. Okay. Oh, excuse me, our contacts. There we go. Now, check this out. What if I want to see everybody? Let's just search our little filter. Everybody that's in the pipeline stage, so deal pipeline, of screened. Show me everybody that's in that. And here they are. Now, if I want to save that as a smart list down here on the right, I can. But for now, we'll just leave that there. Okay. This shows me everybody. You see how that's mimicked? There they are, everybody that's screened. Now, why do I want to do that if I already have this pipeline view? Because look at this. What do you normally do when you have a bunch of people that are screened but haven't filled out their loan app? Well, now you're jumping on the phone, or you're getting your phone out and you're texting them saying, hey, do you have any questions? I haven't got your loan app yet. Is there anything that's holding you up, or do you need some help filling it out, or whatever the case may be? But now you've got 3 people in that boat, right? So now, instead of going and reaching out to each one of them, you can simply either send them an email here, or if you want to get on it just a little bit more, you send them all a text, right? And it can be just a one-off text, something that you would normally say. You want to throw a template in there, great. But hey, just checking in with you. Haven't seen that loan application yet. Have you had a chance to fill it out? What questions do you have? Do you have any concerns with any part of it, et cetera, et cetera? But now in just a few clicks, you've done exactly what you would normally do, and that is follow up to find out why these people have not filled out their loan application, even though they said they would, right? So, and this is super easy for anybody to do. So any member of your team, whatever pipeline they're in, they can do that. So same kind of thing with any of these other stages. So what naturally happens after you receive the loan application? You know, maybe they get an email. Thanks so much for filling out the loan application. We're currently working on your file right now to get you a good pre-approval. If you haven't had a chance, upload your documents to this link, et cetera, right? So just things that you automatically do naturally that you can build into the system and have the system just take care of it for you. This is how you help people or keep people from falling through the cracks, right? So same thing with the approved and looking. You know, these are people that are obviously you've already run them through the pre-approval and they're just out trying to get under contract on a home. Well, on these right here, then you may just want to do a quick follow-up with them every week, right? So now you could go to tier 2, by the way, on these. Let's go back to the screen pipeline. Tier 2 would be to build out an automation that simply texts them every day until they fill out the loan app. So that would be slightly more involved, not tremendously more involved, but you'd want to make sure your settings were right. So when they did fill out the loan app, it doesn't keep texting them. That's one of the things you want to make sure. Although I will say, by and large, if you accidentally bug somebody a little bit too much, that's probably better than not bugging them at all. I say bugging, but you know what I mean. Not bugging them at all and not having them do what you want them to do. So that follow-up system is key. So the money is definitely in the follow-up. Okay, so again, just going back to, let me share this one more time. And then, and I think we'll call it a day because everybody's busy. Here we go. So again, grab that notepad and walk through whatever that process is, okay? For example, let's use the loan application. So if I send my loan application process, right? Loan application process. So what's the very first thing? Well, they've got to have link to app. Is there anything else in there that we need to do? Yeah, actually, they also need the option. I like writing everything down. So they need an option for in-person. Right. Okay. All right. So how do we address that? Let's start with the link to loan app. Okay. So that needs to be emailed. I would also text them. What would be in that email? I would say helpful helps on filling it out. And honestly, you've done this a million times, right? Manually, I'm sure. Also, do's and don'ts of the process. Whoops. Do's and don'ts. Also, maybe the doc list, but maybe you want that in a separate email, but it doesn't matter. Let's just put that how it is. So when I'm sending out a loan application, this is what I like to do. This is what I like them to know. I like to have it in writing. Okay, cool. All right, so then loan app received. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm getting a step ahead of myself. This is why it's nice to do it on a whiteboard because you can erase stuff. Of course, you can erase stuff anywhere. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's see. What if they follow up. When does that happen? It's usually next. I like it to be next day. If I don't get it by deadline, next day. What about again? Let's say then I just say, well, let's go day after. Then how many days in a row do you do it? Do you 4 days, 5 days? You know, whatever the case may be. Let's call it 3 days. So 3-day follow up. I'll just call it 3-day here. And I would like that to be emailed and texted. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So that is the loan application process. So we're not talking about the pre-approval process. We're just talking about getting that loan app after you've talked to them, right? After that, whatever it takes to get that loan app. So that would be pretty cool to have all that happen. All right. So then you start going through and just checking the boxes on what needs to happen manually and then what you can build into the system. Well, all right, I want to do the link to the loan app, so I can email that. That is an automation. We can throw that in the automation. And what's the trigger? Well, we'll do the pipeline. That works out great, right? I also need to make sure that the email is correct and it has all of these things. Do we want to send one email or two? Let's call it two. Again, this is just an example. You can do it however you want. Let's do 2 emails, doc list with instructions. I'm just showing you again how you map out the process first before you dig into the software. This helps so much because the software itself has so many things that it might start pulling you one way or the other. And that's okay as long as it's matching what you want it to do. But again, you want it to emulate what you naturally do, okay? Or I should say, multiply what you naturally do too, right? Okay, so then the follow-up, what does that look like? Okay, let's do a 3-day follow-up sequence where we'll go email and text. Okay, so what does that look like? And then if they reply, let's make sure they get knocked out. And then how do we make sure that we're not texting them if they have filled out the loan application? Okay, well, that means that we need to make sure that the automation turns off when app is received. So that is probably going to be in the pipeline stage. So I just make these little notes to myself. Okay, cool. Right, because look, again, emulating yourself, you're not going to keep texting somebody if they've already done the loan app, right? If you're doing that in person, you're not going to keep texting them to get the loan app. You're just moving them to the next stage. Okay. So that mapping out, by the way, is super, super helpful, especially if you have a team. And even if you're not really even interested in running an automation to do anything, it really helps take a lot of random out of your business. And it can totally transform what's happening on the front end and the back end with your people. It leaves things less to chance. You know, if you look at McDonald's, and In-N-Out's another great example. I guess not everybody has In-N-Out, I suppose, but McDonald's, they are one of the greatest examples of a company that's pulled as much random out of the process as possible. Like they literally can get anybody to work there because the systems are so tight. In fact, I was talking to this kid in my neighborhood who worked at McDonald's, and I was just kind of curious about their systems. And I said, hey, you know, now McDonald's, they made it so you couldn't even mess up overfilling a drink. And I was thinking about those now old machines that had the buttons on it, you know, with the size of the cups. So you just put the cup in and, oh, this is a medium, and it would fill it automatically. Well, I asked him that, and I was kind of dating myself there, I guess. But I'm like, hey, so do they still have those machines that have the cup buttons? And he said, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, how do you fill the drinks there at McDonald's? He said, well, we have this machine that we put the cup in, and it, like, I guess it takes the cup through a process and it fills it with the ice, the perfect amount, and it fills it with mixes the drink on the fly, the perfect mixture, the perfect temperature. Everything's the same every time. And I can't remember if he said it even puts the lid on it. I think he said that, but I'm not quite sure. But he said, basically, we just put the cup in, it goes around, and it's done. So he can't even mess that up. So, which is kind of crazy. And I imagine that they'll probably even figure out a way to just deliver the cups too, you know, whoop, 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 whatever the order is. Okay, so that's really it. That framework, though, just to reiterate, the framework truly is making sure that your process is already filled out and you already understand it. My guess is, if you're like most business owners, myself included, many of your processes are not mapped out at all, and you probably do a lot of stuff on the fly. So that's one of the great things about running automations and actually putting your processes against a framework. It forces you to actually go through that exercise and build out better and more efficient processes so that you can make more money, be more customer friendly, deliver greater service, and have a consistent output every single time. And in the service industry, you know, especially mortgages, you know, there's so many unpredictable pieces. So if you can add more pieces that are as predictable as possible, it really, really can make you stand out above your competitors. Okay. All right. Well, that's pretty much it for today. Who do we have on? You have any questions? Okay, no questions today. Thanks for joining. We're going to do another War Room Wednesday. I believe we're scheduled for next Wednesday, appropriately. And of course, shoot your questions over to me, or head over to the website at truepartnerai.com. And we've got a lot of great stuff and more things coming out, by the way. So got some more bonuses and some cool things coming out. So if you're on the call today, we'll be emailing some of those cool technology things, especially if you are into Facebook advertising. We've got some really great things that you can do in conjunction, especially with referral partners like real estate agents, loan officers. Okay. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great week. Go get them, and we'll talk soon.